Hey folks, in the last few videos, we've been making a really pretty interface for our Dripbox app, which is a Dropbox clone that runs locally. It's not going out into the cloud. It's only sharing files within our local network. And we've got a great looking interface now that is listing out all of the files that are available to be shared. And we now need to do the opposite here, where we're asking all of our connected neighbors, okay, what files do you have available for me to now copy locally over here? So we've got this set up right now where this is listing all the things that we are sharing, and we've got action buttons where we can delete them or revert them to old versions, and we can even add new files that we want to share quickly and easily. And we got a pretty scroll bar that keeps this all constrained so that we're not just blowing up a huge GUI here. So the next thing here is now to make the list, a list very similar to this, where we've got action buttons and names and scroll bars of all of the available files that are within our local network. So over here in our GUI section, where we're defining the layout, like this is our main sort of create layout thing here, we're going to need to create all of the elements that we're going to use in our new snag panel, or snags panel. This is going to get a little confusing. We're going to make the snags panel. We're going to need a list of snags. So we're going to call this our snags list. And now we need to populate this with all of the available files that are being shared from our networked neighbors. So over in our networking file here, I'm going to create a list all snags. And you see I'm cheating because I had to work out like all of this in advance. Like this list all snags has to first go through all of our connections and create a new list that's just the shares for each connection. And there will likely be duplicates in these, since we got all kinds of different files from all kinds of different computers. Some will have the same file multiple times. So we want to make sure that we're going to eliminate any of the duplicates. But the shares here are dictionaries. So usually in Python, if you had like a list of things and some of those were duplicates, you would cast it to a set, and that would just automatically get rid of all of your duplicates, and you can just cast that back into a list if you need to. The dictionaries, however, presented an interesting challenge. So now, not only do we have to go through all of our connections to grab all of the shares, we're going to have to unpack the dictionaries and then repackage them after we've gotten rid of any duplicates. So I'm going to walk you through all this, but I want to show you that we can actually accomplish all of this in a single line of code. This is absurd. It's almost breaking the zen of Python. It's so crazy. But like that's one line that's doing all of the things that I just described. I'm going to break it down for you in stages here so that you can learn from this instead of me just saying, here's the code and moving on. So like I said, first stage, we're just going through our list of all connections. So this is like a global of all of the connections that we have. So we're going through 4 connection in connections, and then we're grabbing the connection shares and we're adding that to a list in this list comprehension. And then the second stage for this is going to be, I'll get extra notes here. We're going to now go through this list of shares that we've created, and then this is a tricky one because you see we've got 2 for-ins in this one list comprehension. And we get lots of for-inning over here. So this is a good way to step up from a traditional sort of list comprehension here, where we've got a single for whatever variable x, for x in y, and x is whatever we can now manipulate over here. We're doing the same thing over here now, except for each share list in this stage 1 list, I want to grab each share in. So watch very carefully how this is lining up, because the syntax is important, where we have the first thing that I want you to do followed by the second for loop that I want you to do. So we need to go through this stage 1, and for each, this is again our variable, whatever, like for x in whatever. This is our variable that we can now use to further manipulate in another for loop of for share in this individual list. So now we're taking out that list and unpacking it into we're taking all of the lists, like all of these shares that we got here, and we're putting it all into one big list. Now, to preserve the structure of our dictionaries that include all the information we need about our shares, because we need the file name, the size, and things like that, we can break it off into tuples. So here in this third stage, I'm casting this share item that we've now got in this share list of which does include duplicates. We're breaking that off into tuples by calling the items here. And it's simply for X in Y things. So it's still the same idea, except this is actually a set comprehension. As you see, we're not doing the square brackets anymore. This is a curly bracket, which is going to put all this into a set. And since we're putting it all into a set, it's automatically going to get rid of any duplicates for us. So that's very convenient. But now we got to turn it back into a dictionary. So we're doing a list comprehension that's creating a dictionary for each item that remains in this that we've created tuples of and got rid of any duplicates of. So it's a simple, for T in stage. When you're doing one of these really super long ones, you start to run out of numbers and letters and stuff for your variables, so it gets very confusing very fast. But it is an amusing exercise to get you thinking about code syntax in some really useful ways that I think is worth highlighting in any intermediate Python series. So now we've finally got through the stages of get rid of duplicates, turning it all back into dictionaries. So I've got a testing client that's going to help me test this without having to dig around with a lot of things. Like, it's got its own built-in share, so it's not running on its own database like we are with our main Dropbox app. And I've added an override function to the connect that'll let me connect to my own IP. So this should just automatically connect now if I launch this. We are successfully connecting, and that means that over here we're getting a similar list of all the things that are available on this machine. And it is very important that we do that first when we establish the new connection, so that we can see exactly what are the new files that you're bringing into this shared communal list of files. So I've got this working, and these are the shares that it has specifically. So what we want to do now is do all the things that I was talking about before to this list, because we're just going to have this one connection in here for the purposes of demonstrations. So let me set this up now so the list all snags does that. Okay, I've added a little change to our snag button here. So when I press the snag button, it's going to do all the things I was just describing in the list all snags in our networking file. So you say when I didn't have a connection, it just went through all the stages, nothing happened. If I go through now that I have a client connected, I hit this, we get all those stages broken down so you can see exactly what's going on here. So here's the status messages that we received, and here's our stage one where it's taking just the shares from this status message, which is like, I guess, the second entry there. Anyway, it's grabbing all the shares, it's doing all the things that I was explaining, and you can see how it slowly gets reduced from being this big list into a smaller thing, and then back into a usable list without any duplicates. In this case, there weren't any duplicates to work with, but if there were multiple machines, it would go through this and correctly do that at the set stage. So now we've got this list of things. I'm going to change this now to show you that we get the same result by using a list comprehension that just gets rid of all these lines. So instead of a minimum of 4 lines, we're now doing everything on 1 line. Let me start everything up again. All right, and now this should just be the list comprehension when I hit the snag button. Oh, didn't actually do anything with that. Hold on a second. All right, I've set this up down to print, so when we hit the snag button, we're going to see that clean list of just the snags instead of all the other details that we got with the status update. So with that working now, we can use that to rebuild our UI so that we're always going to have the latest list of available snags for us to snag. So we'll go back up in here to where we were setting our snag here. We're going to have a snag list that's going to be empty because this is going to include our UI elements here. And then we're going to need a all the snags, which is just going to be the results that we get from Dropbox networking list all snags. Now we go through this list. So for snag in all the snags, we're going to want to create a new element that represents that. The same way that we're doing in the shares, where we're going through each share that we're sharing, and we're adding a button and a text and a progress bar for each button or for each share there. So we're going to do a similar thing here where we're going to do the list append on a snag list now. And inside of this, we're going to need a button and text. I'm just going to copy and paste some in here right now to keep this moving, because you've already seen me make these UI elements enough at this point, and I don't want to try to even pretend that I'm remembering all of the little things and details here, but the basic thing that we're doing here is we're setting the image data so that the button has a image, which is going to be our download button, and we're setting the colors and padding to it. This is complaining because that was wrong. And this is an important element here. The key is what we use to identify this. So when this button is pressed, the download button for this specific snag, we're going to get a key from it that says snag with its specific ID and even its file name. We use the file name as the thing that we list. So now we need to find a good way of presenting this now to the users.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
So this is actually the next week after I was recording this previously. I was in the middle of editing this when I discovered that everything beyond this point is just completely unusable. I had some sort of weird recording error. So there are two important things that we need to note that have changed since I was first recording this. One is that this t-shirt has been washed, so I'm not wearing a dirty shirt from last week. And the other one is that I quit vaping. So I am going through some slight nicotine withdrawal issues right now, and I might be a little punchy because I gotta fucking do this video again. So I'm trying to start over from exactly where the last video cut off at. So we've got the snag list here, and we did all the snags. And the specific reason I'm starting this from here is so I don't have to go back and try to explain this list all the snags thing again. So we're just going to continue on from where we're at, where we're trying to create a GUI element now to list all of the shares that are available from our peers in our network, which we are calling snags, just to try to keep it separate from all the other uses of the word share in this. So these potential snags are now something we can list easily. We've got this list that we're building up. We just need to now stuff this into some place that we can see it. So we can really just copy and paste quite a lot of things from the way that we were doing the shares, but there's a big gotcha when you do this. I'm going to show you that. All right. So I'm trying to grab the way that we add this list, where we make the same sort of share list that we were making for the snag list. We add that to a column, and then we have this clever little thing here that's deciding whether or not we need a scroll bar. So let's go down and copy and paste this into here, and I'll change this now to the snag list. And I have to remember to change the name of this to snag list. And oh shit. Oh, I found oh shit. I think I found an error in the way that I was doing this previously. Okay. This is why you shouldn't copy and paste stuff quite so much, because sometimes you will get yourself confused and forget where the hell you are when you were doing a thing. So now we're quickly using the share list as the thing that we're measuring whether or not the shares need a scroll bar. So if there's more than 7 items in our share list, we do need a scroll bar. So it creates this list of properties, which we're unpacking here as the share scroll. So that's telling it, okay, it needs to be this height. And you notice the width is slightly different for the one with the scroll bar, because it needs to account for the scroll bar now. And we're giving it the scroll bar. I'm reading scrollable and trying to say scroll bar, and that's really fucking with me. The scrollable and vertical scroll only properties are also important that are getting unpacked here if there are more than 7 items in our share list. So now let's try and do the same thing down here with the snag list. And actually what I was going to show you was that the snag scroll here was something I'd have to rename later on, but I actually had it in backwards somehow. Let's make sure that we're looking for the snag list here. All right. And now we want to do the same thing where we were unpacking this into a thing where we're calling this the pane shares here.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
So yeah, we're just appending that as a... God, that seems confusing. Do we have... Damn it. All right, yeah, I'm glad I'm able to read my own code fast, because I'm looking at this now, and we need to do a few more things besides just stuff this in like we're doing it up here. One of the main things we're going to have to do is let's create this pane here with our stuff that we're breaking out. So we're going to call this our pane snags. And we're going to stuff the column snag list in here, which, because of the way that PySimpleGUI is structured, we're putting a list inside of a column, and we're putting that column inside of a list, which is inside of another list, which is inside of a column. Don't feel bad if you get lost trying to cover that. It's still easier than doing this in like Qt or any other usual ways of doing GUIs. So we got this pane snags thing here, which is just a list of all of the shares themselves. We want to include some other details in this, though, like we had up here in our layout main, we've got our image for our banner, and we also have a share button. Or that we have the snag and the share buttons. So what we need to actually do is we're going to copy this out here. Yeah, okay. We're going to copy that now because we didn't learn our lessons from the last time where we were screwing up from copying and pasting. So now we're going to make this the layout snags. Yes. And again, we want to have this image set in, for our inner banner. And here we're going to do something slightly different because we don't need a snag button and we don't need a share button. What we need is a cancel button. And because we already used the word cancel somewhere else, we need to set a specific key here so we know that we're canceling this. So let's call this the cancel snags. And now that will be clearer to us when we press a button, it'll say cancel snags. But right here in this, this other button, we don't actually want a second button, but we do need it to space out the buttons. Because remember, we're trying to make this look professional and neat. So if we've got two buttons in one pane and we go over to the next pane and we only got one button, it's going to fall back to this position. So we need to space out the two so they're at the right position. And the way that we're going to do that is by changing this button now into just text. And it's going to be a blank text, but I'm going to give it the same exact properties that the button itself had, which was the padding and the, I think we could just unpack all the button props, which is, it's just setting the size to be exactly the way that it would be if it was a button, but now it's just an empty text thing. So there's no chance of the user having some weird interaction with a blank button, which would look weird anyhow. Down here where we're adding all of these columns that are our layouts into one big thing, which we then display with some of them being hidden. The way I structured this previously was not very clean. So let's make this much cleaner. Instead of copying and pasting all these things between whether or not it's in it or not, let's just have one check and we'll set all the variables that we need inside of that one check. So let's just get rid of this. And now I'm going to set visible equals I think I had these backwards when I was doing this. Let's see. Visibility equals false true. This is going to make sense in half a second here. If I can spell visibility correctly. All right. So now instead of checking the init state and then trying to set the visibility from there, we're going to keep this real simple because we only ever want to change the visibility of the main and the login. So we've only got two little things here that we're changing now inside of a list. So we can easily address that list by saying visibility 0, whatever is there is the right thing, and visibility 1 is the right thing for the main here. And now we can add to this without having to copy and paste things. So, or as I'm copying and pasting here, without having two sets of things that are doing the exact same bit of code is basically what I'm trying to get at here. So our column snags is going to be a column that includes the layout of snags. And we got to give this a key of its own. You notice that I'm trying so hard to be consistent in the naming here because there are so many different places where we're using share. And we're going to be using snag in a few different ways. So I'm making sure that this is the plural form of snags because we're going to have a singular snag thing where we, in just a minute here. So, all right, we got this. We're stuffing the column snag here. Let's stuff it here. Trying to remember if in the video I showed you that we had the, I think I did. Let me double check here. This should all be running and working fine. Yay. Okay. And right now, I think if I'm hitting the snag button, it should print out everything from the, all the shares, or all the snags. Yeah, okay, so that's an empty list right now. Let me connect the test client. We got to wait for the test client to make a status message. We'll fix this momentarily, where we're going to actually make it send out its status as soon as it establishes a connection. But right now, for debugging purposes, I'm just going to sit here and wait a few seconds and then edit it in. All right, we finally got the status message from the client, so I can come in here, test our snag button, and it is giving us the thing that we made with the list all snags thing in a nice, neat package that is just a simple list with no duplicates. So let me make the snag button actually do the thing that it's supposed to do now. We'll get rid of that print statement, and we're just going to set the visibility of our main panel to be false and the visibility of our snags panel to be true, and that should work. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I've encountered an issue here. We're connected and we're tested the connect client, and the snag button is in fact taking us to a new panel, and the cancel button is taking away from that panel and putting us back into the main, which is, you see I added the code here for doing that. But when we press the snag button, we're not actually seeing any of the snags that are available on our connected test client. The reason for that is we didn't actually tell it to rebuild the thing. So let's just do this all correctly and cleanly in one fell swoop instead of me breaking this apart, showing you things working intermittently. So let's start off by going over to our status update. So our challenge now is going to be to make this status update thing work as a loop most of the time, but give us an option to do a single shot to a single connection when we need to. So the easiest way of that is going to be to add in some sort of a thing here. It's like run once, and we'll set that to none. And you'll see I've got a note here to make this a list comprehension, because this is kind of redundant. So let's just make this a connection list comprehension real quick. So for connection in connections, we want to grab, we're making a dictionary of host name, which is using the host name from this connection, and we're stuffing in the URI for that connection as well. I thought it would be illustrative to see me writing a simple list comprehension like that. So yeah, we made that much cleaner. Now we can do this one-shot thing here. So let me think about how to do this. I guess we want it to be right here. All right. So if run once is not none, then this is going to be our connection. So we'll send in the specific connection that we want the user to send the latest status update to. So if this is not none, then we're going to have this new thing to send our status update to. So instead of going through this whole list of this try for connections, we're just going to check if run once state equals connected. Well, then we send, yeah, that's correct, to run once our status update. But we want to break out of this loop, because this while true loop would just keep going. So we just break, and it will never get to this portion here, and it will no longer be a loop where it's constantly sleeping and going through this every minute. So we don't end up with two different status update processes running in our background. We'll just have this one when we do this run once thing. This naming convention of run once isn't particularly clear, so I'm going to change it. On PySimpleGUI, it's really easy. I just do a Control-Alt-Shift-J, and now it selects every instance of that. Where I'm going to now, where I'm going to change it now to be new connection, which is just a little bit cleaner, and you'll see that also changed up here as well. So it's just a little bit clearer as to what that is instead of a run once thing. It's basically running as a run once here, where it's only going to run this once, but here we're saying that this is a new connection that I'm giving it, and its state and send seem logical and reasonable from here. We got to clean that up a little bit here. All right, so now we need to make sure that we're actually making use of our status update's new connection ability. So to do this, we're going to want to send a connection every single time we make a new connection. And there are two different methods that make connections. Although our app is peer-to-peer, we needed to structure it so that there's a server and client relationship during the actual login handshake stuff. So we've got two different places we need to look at to add this connection message after login. So we've got the welcome, which is the server behavior. So once the server is fully established that, okay, this is a new connection and we trust them and everything's good, we want to send the status update, and we're passing self as the new connection argument. So it's no longer none. We're passing the self of this connection to this, and it'll work fine. We're doing this as a async IO get event loop create task, so that this is its own separate async IO process sort of thing. So we're not blocking here in our login. All right, so now that we have this status update being sent, no matter how you're connecting to one another, we need to now make sure that the listener is also listening for these status updates and is using them appropriately. So see, we got the listener process here, which is over here where it's checking to see, is this a status update? Is this a file request? Is this a sending thing? Here we want to start to use this these status updates a little bit more intelligently. So right now, the way it's set up is it just copies whatever data we get in that message from the status update, and it just copies that all into the shares, and it goes through all of the shares, checking to see if there's any changes. That's hugely unnecessary because we only want to do all of this if there's some change between what the remote machine is sending as their share status and the memory copy that we have for it. So let's just do that check. If self shares does not equal data shares, then we need to copy that into memory and do all of this business over here. But you see, I've also got another little hint for myself to do the rebuild UI, but don't rebuild it in my testing client, which is a really good thing to point out here in case you want to make your own testing client. I changed the name of the client to be client so that it's clear that this is the client status here. So we'll just do a quick if. Oh, actually, that should be right here in networking already. So if hello, my name is does not equal client, then we want to do a Dropbox GUI rebuild UI. And that should do it. Let's test this out. All right. I'm having some interesting errors here, but this is going to be an educational error. If I run this, watch the console log right here. The client's automatically going to connect to it, which is what this string is indicating. And then it immediately sent the status message. And over on the client side, we see that it also just immediately receives a status message from the server. And let me stop it again here and let you see the GUI refresh here. So here's the GUI. It gets the new message. It refreshes. But our snag list is still not populating correctly. And I got to figure out why that is.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Oh, shit. Okay, I found it. Man, that's an embarrassing error. I'm just going to stuff our pane snags here now because we didn't actually include any of the snags in our layout. So now our layout should refresh correctly. Let's see what happens. Fucking Christ.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
I get so lost in all these lists. So I sent a list element instead of an element where it wanted a list element or whatever. Fuck it. I don't even know anymore. There we go. Let's see what happens. All right, and it refreshes when we get the status update, and it is showing the snags. In fact, I bet this button will work. Yeah, we're getting the buttons working and everything, but you'll see that it's all on the same row, which means I screwed up in the way that I was doing this. And that's why it was complaining about this not being, or this being a list where it didn't expect to see a list. So I knew exactly what this problem was as soon as I saw it. Each list inside of PySimpleGUI is a new row. So we put this pane snags in the wrong place because this list that's of the banner and the column is its own row here. and we were stuffing it in and then that same row. What we actually want to do now is make a new row, and in here we put the pane snags, which is itself not a list. It's a column of a list. This should work now. Yay! And our buttons still work and everything. That's perfect. All right. So let's review a few things here to make sure that we're doing this correctly. I'm noticing a little bit of sizing differences here between things. So let me, before I move any further, I need to make sure I know why it's doing that, because we are really going to need to keep the UI tight as we move forward from here. So let me figure out what's going on. All right, I had to completely tear this apart to figure out what was going on wrong. The column where we're putting in our button to cancel the snags and our empty text thing, I need to set the padding to this just one character larger, because I think it's using characters at this point here. It's super confusing when it's using pixels or characters. I think that's going to solve the problem here. It did. Yay. Okay, so perfectly. Everything is fitting nice and neatly. Let me test another thing here, just to make sure that when this launches without anybody connecting to it, we still get a nice clean thing where it's not resizing like before. It didn't have the panel here at all, so it would be shrunk. So now everything is always staying consistently sized throughout our application, which is super important for making this look professional and clean. You have to pay attention to those sorts of details. All right, so these videos are taking just way too damn long, and I'm going to have to cut this one short here. In the next video, we're going to pick up exactly where we're leaving off here, and we're going to actually make use of this and make sure that we have some actual functionality in our snags panel and progress from there. This is almost done, though. Like, we're really getting close to the end. Thank you very much to my Patreon patrons for making these videos possible. Take it easy, folks.